Welcome to a new episode of the podcast. Vox Agent is made by AI for business executives that work with AI. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something incredibly relevant to, well, every single one of us navigating the AI-driven world, your brain on ChatGPT. And this isn't just, about students writing essays. It's about some really groundbreaking neuroscientific evidence from a recent MIT Media Lab study. It really tells us a lot about how our brains truly interact with artificial intelligence. So our mission here is to unpack the hidden cognitive costs of relying too much on AI, and maybe more importantly, to understand how we can harness AI's power without eroding our most valuable asset, our own human cognitive skills. Let's unpack this.
Yeah, it's a vital conversation, really, especially now with generative AI like ChatGPT, GPT-4. It's becoming integrated pretty much everywhere. You see it in Microsoft 365 Copilot, Google Workspace.
Yeah.
It's in our daily applications, and we all know it's a powerful tool, right, for productivity. But this MIT study, it asks a really profound question. What's the unseen cost? What's the trade-off for this immediate power boost? What's actually happening inside our brains when we, outsource our thinking to AI?
That's the core of it, isn't it? It's more than just, oh, this makes things faster. What exactly were the researchers looking at? What were they trying to measure in the brain to understand this cost?
Well, they focused on something called cognitive load. That's basically the mental effort your brain is putting in. The study used EEG electroencephalography to literally watch the brainwave activity. They looked at connectivity between different brain regions, especially the frontal lobes, as those handle planning, decision-making, and the parietal lobes, which integrate information. So higher connectivity, that means your brain is actively engaged, working hard. And what they found was, well, it was pretty stark. The more a tool automated the task, the less brain activity they saw in the user. Our brains were effectively kind of powering down.
Powering down, wow. And that leads us right into this this concept they introduced, which sounds a bit concerning, cognitive debt. Could you break that down for us? What does that mean?
Cognitive debt, yeah. It's a very deliberate metaphor, like financial debt, right? It's this idea that you accumulate hidden costs to your cognitive abilities over time from repeatedly relying on AI. So in the short term, you get the benefit, ease, speed, you get that report drafted fast. But over the long haul, the interest on this debt starts to come due. And that shows up as, reduced critical thinking, maybe weaker memory, less creativity. You might get a decent output right now. But your own independent knowledge, your ability to generate original thoughts, it kind of atrophies in the background subtly. And this ties directly into neuroplasticity. Your brain needs challenges to form new connections, to stay sharp. It's absolutely a use it or lose it situation for your mental muscles.
Okay, so if our brains are powering down, as you said, and we're building up this cognitive debt, how does that actually affect things like, well, metacognition or a sense of ownership, even memory?
Yeah, all of those were really hit hard in this study. Metacognition, that's your ability to think about your own thinking, right? Planning, checking your work, evaluating it, that was significantly lower in the AI users. Their brain signals basically showed a more passive engagement, less active self-monitoring going on. And this passivity, it also seemed to lead to a weaker sense of ownership. A lot of the AI users, when they were surveyed, they felt the work wasn't really theirs. Some even explicitly said the AI was the author. And maybe most critical for, say, learning and retention. Deep memory processing was weaker. That's the semantic encoding, the consolidation that happens when you really wrestle with ideas yourself, in your own words. Students who used AI heavily just struggled. They had a much harder time recalling the content they'd supposedly written with AI because their brains hadn't done that deep processing work.
That's a huge point, especially for anyone in business involved in, like, training or knowledge management. Makes me think of the old Google effect idea, where you remember how to find something but not the thing itself. It sounds like that, but maybe on steroids.
Yeah.
Applied to much higher level thinking.
Exactly. The Google effect was about sort of digital amnesia for facts. This MIT study, it gives us neurological evidence that the same kind of thing happens with more complex skills, writing, reasoning, analysis. If the tool does the heavy cognitive lifting for you, your brain just, well, it invests less effort. And those specific cognitive pathways, they weaken over time. It's not just about remembering facts anymore. It's about the very process of forming your own ideas.
Right. To really get our heads around this, we need to understand how they actually measured it. Can you walk us through the study's setup and what were the really key findings?
Yeah, sure. So it was a controlled experiment, ran over 4 months. They had 54 university students writing essays. They split them into 3 groups. You had the brain-only group, no tools, just their own thinking. Then a search engine group using Google, Bing, whatever, standard search. And finally, the LLM group using AI like ChatGPT or the newer GPT-4o. And throughout these sessions, they were collecting EEG data, measuring that brain activity we talked about. Plus, they analyzed the essays for quality using both human educators and an AI judge, which is interesting in itself.
Okay, and you mentioned there was this really crucial moment, the fourth session. What happened there?
Yes, that was pivotal. They took a smaller group, 18 students, and had them switch conditions. So some students who had been relying on the LLM were suddenly asked to write without it. That showed the impact of that reliance. And conversely, some from the brain-only group got access to AI for the first time. That showed the effect of starting with pure human effort. This crossover design was really clever. It powerfully highlighted the lasting effects of how you initially engage with the task.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting then. What did the brain scans actually show? And what happened with their performance when they switched? The neural engagement differences were quite dramatic. The brain-only group consistently showed the highest cognitive load. Their brains were buzzing, basically. High activity, strong connectivity signaling deep problem solving. The LLM group, on the other hand, showed the weakest brain connectivity, significantly less active, almost like their brains were, powered down during the writing task. And the search engine group, kind of in the middle, as you might expect. It was a clear pattern. The more the tool did the work, the less the user's brain engaged.
Wow. Okay. And how did that difference in brain activity translate to like what they actually remembered and the quality of their essays?
This is where that cognitive debt really seemed to bite. The brain-only group. They could recall their essay content pretty easily later on. But in that crucial fourth session switch, here's the kicker. A whopping 78% of the students who had previously relied heavily on AI, they failed to correctly quote their own prior writing when asked to do it from memory. Failed. 78%. The information just hadn't stuck because it wasn't deeply processed. And what's fascinating is the symmetry. On the flip side, 78% of those who started out writing independently, they could still accurately quote their original work, even after they later got AI access.
78% both ways. That's uncanny.
It is. It strongly suggests that how you start the task with deep cognitive effort or by outsourcing it fundamentally dictates how well you learn and remember.
So the convenience, the speed of the AI, it came at a really clear cost, a cost to actual mental effort, memory formation, and ultimately being able to think for yourself. It really throws cold water on the simple idea that, if the output looks good, then everything's fine.
Exactly. The study really uncovers this hidden toll on cognitive development. You could think of it like always using GPS, even in your own neighborhood. You get where you're going faster, sure, but you never actually learn the streets yourself. Now, the authors acknowledge limitations. It was one specific task, university students, relatively short duration. But even so, the findings are a pretty critical warning sign, especially for anyone looking to build sustainable human capabilities in a world that's increasingly powered by AI.
That makes complete sense. Okay, so given these findings, which are pretty stark, how is the edtech sector responding? Are they adjusting?
Oh, definitely. The edtech world is very aware of this. We're starting to see a shift towards tools that are designed with this cognitive science in mind. Khan Academy's Cognigo AI Tutor is probably the best-known example right now. It's specifically designed not to just give you the answer. Instead, it uses a Socratic method. It asks questions, guides the student, makes them do the critical thinking to arrive at the solution. The whole point is to augment the student's effort, keep them actively engaged, not just replace it.
That's really interesting. And it brings up a key point for our listeners in the business world. How are these kinds of insights translating into AI-human collaboration in the workplace, beyond just formal education?
Yeah, that centaur idea, the human plus AI team being stronger than either alone, is really gaining ground, and best practices are starting to emerge. The core idea is AI should augment, not replace, human cognition. So, for example, in software development, you might see AI suggesting code, but the human developer's job is to actively review, test, and understand it, not just blindly accept it. Some companies are thinking about rotating tasks, making sure employees sometimes work with AI, sometimes deliberately work without it, just to keep those fundamental skills sharp. The absolute key is that the human maintains an active role, setting the goals, making the crucial judgments, asking the smart questions, rather than just becoming a passive validator of whatever the AI spits out. And this is where AI literacy becomes so important too. It's not just teaching people how to use the tools, it's teaching them the limitations, how to critically evaluate the output, how to verify it, and how to use AI as a powerful starting point, not the final word. The MIT study basically provides the neuroscientific why behind these emerging best practices.
Right. So the bottom line seems to be active learning, active engagement that beats passive consumption every time. And AI tools that actually promote that engagement are going to be way better for long-term skills and knowledge than the ones that just hand over the answers.
Precisely. That's the key takeaway for sustainable development.
So let's pivot directly to you, the listener, the business executive. What are the clear benefits here? What's the strategic value in really understanding and addressing this cognitive debt? It isn't just an academic issue.
Now, the implications for enterprises are huge, and understanding them really offers a competitive advantage. First off, there's improved immediate performance, but, and this is key, when AI is used wisely, AI can boost productivity. We see it all the time. Microsoft's figures for Copilot users saving hours per week are real, potentially double-digit productivity gains. But the MIT study adds a crucial how. Optimal value comes from augmentation, not replacement. Remember that brain to LLM group? They achieved high-quality work, and they maintained strong brain engagement and memory, that's 78% recall success. So you can get efficiency gains while still fostering internal knowledge. That's the sweet spot. Second, think about enhanced learning and skill retention. That's long-term ROI. This study basically gives you a playbook for more sustainable learning and development, less need for reteaching, better transfer of training to actual job performance. That massive difference in recall, 78% versus almost zero, shows how much more gets internalized with mindful, brain-first, or brain-involved use. Third, it directly impacts innovation and idea diversity. Let's be honest, AI outputs can sometimes be, well, a bit bland, generic, repetitive. A human-first approach, or even using AI for initial brainstorming, but then having humans critically select, refine, and build on those ideas that yields more unique, insightful outputs. And in today's market, unique insight is a massive competitive edge. Fourth, don't underestimate employee satisfaction and ownership. People feel more engaged, more motivated, frankly, prouder of their work when they feel a real sense of authorship, of contribution. If over-reliance on AI starts to erode that feeling, making people feel like just button pushers, that's a hidden but significant cost to morale, engagement, and ultimately retention. Fifth, this study hints at new metrics for decision-making. Okay, we're probably not putting EEG caps on our employees anytime soon.
Hopefully not.
Right. But the concept of measuring cognitive health, or the effectiveness of learning, is vital. Companies might start tracking things like error rates downstream from AI use, how often revisions are needed, maybe retraining frequency. Are people truly internalizing knowledge when AI is involved? And maybe the most strategic point is about long-term human capital development. Think of cognitive debt as, well, depreciation on your most valuable asset, your people's brains. Actively managing how AI is used helps ensure your employees appreciate in capability over time. They stay agile, they can handle novel situations better, they become more valuable. It's an investment in the intellectual horsepower of your organization.
That's a really compelling set of benefits. Okay, let's make it concrete. Imagine a hypothetical firm, maybe Alpha Consulting Inc. How could they actually apply these lessons to get ahead?
Okay, Alpha Consulting. Let's say they embrace this. They invest in a powerful AI research tool because speed matters in consulting. However, they implement a specific policy. The first slide of every single client presentation, the executive summary, the core insight must be drafted by the consultant without AI assistance. This forces that deep cognitive engagement on the crucial message. Then, the AI can help flesh out supporting details, background data, maybe draft boilerplate sections. They also run internal workshops. Maybe junior staff have to present project approaches or case studies without relying on AI-generated slides or scripts. This explicitly builds their core analytical and communication muscles, their confidence. So what happens at Alpha Consulting? Maybe they find that client satisfaction scores start ticking up, edging out competitors. Clients might say their insights feel more tailored, more genuinely insightful, less like generic templates. Perhaps they start attracting top graduates who are specifically looking for firms where they'll learn how to be great consultants, not just great AI operators or slide generators. They still save time on the grunt work of research, absolutely, but they strategically reallocate that saved time to deeper human analysis, critical thinking, and maybe more face-time building client relationships. That's how you turn these scientific findings into a tangible strategy and ultimately a competitive advantage.
That's a fantastic practical example. It shows how you can blend efficiency with deeper human value. But let's be realistic. Implementing this kind of mindful AI usage, it must come with challenges, right? practical, maybe even ethical ones.
Oh, absolutely. It's not simple. On the practical, technical side, there's a real challenge in designing AI tools that genuinely engage the user without just becoming frustrating. AI is often optimized for efficiency, for giving the quickest, most direct answer. That can sometimes mean it does too much of the thinking. Finding that right balance between helpful assistance and necessary cognitive friction, that's a tricky design trade-off. Ethically, you've got issues like academic integrity. If AI wrote most of the essay, how do you assess the student? That translates to the workplace too. Accountability for AI errors gets murky if human oversight becomes passive or disengaged. Who's responsible then? And from an enterprise implementation standpoint, you'll likely face resistance to change. Why make employees do the harder thinking when the AI could technically do it faster? That's a tough sell sometimes. Effective AI literacy training is crucial, but also challenging to do well. And measuring something intangible like cognitive debt or engagement in a day-to-day business setting, that's hard. Then there's the bigger societal picture. There's a real risk of widespread skill erosion if we, as a culture, stop valuing the mental effort involved in deep thinking simply because instant answers are available.
Okay, that brings up a really important point for everyone listening. What are the concrete risks for your organization if you sort of ignore these insights? And maybe more importantly, what are some practical ways to mitigate those risks?
Right. The most immediate risk is probably skill erosion and potentially talent loss. If your team becomes overly reliant on AI for core tasks, their fundamental skills could atrophy. Then, if the AI fails or they need to adapt, they might struggle. Mitigation. Well, things like regular skill assessments without AI assistance. Job rotation helps keep diverse skills sharp. Encouraging or even requiring documentation of the human reasoning alongside AI outputs can help too. Then there's the risk of reduced critical thinking and innovation. If your workforce becomes passive consumers of AI suggestions, where does the next breakthrough idea come from? Your competitive edge could dull over time. Ways to mitigate this: maybe dedicated innovation incubators or brainstorming sessions where AI tools are deliberately off limits initially. Actively seeking diverse external perspectives. And crucially, leadership needs to model critical thinking, openly questioning AI outputs, encouraging debate. Another big one is employee disengagement and morale. If people feel that unique human skills are being devalued, that they're just supervising a machine, motivation can plummet. Mitigation here involves thoughtful job redesign, ensuring roles still contain meaningful, challenging human tasks, providing clear growth paths that aren't just about operating AI, and celebrating uniquely human achievements and contributions. And finally, there's the risk of overdependence and creating single points of failure. Relying too heavily on one specific AI tool or process makes you vulnerable. Mitigation is about building resilience, fostering a culture of verification and cross-checking AI outputs, requiring independent human review for critical decisions, and always maintaining robust backup processes. Really, the overarching mitigation strategy across all these risks is active management. You can't just deploy AI and walk away. You need to constantly monitor, evaluate, and adapt the human-AI relationship.
That makes sense. Active management is key. So looking ahead then, say the next 3 to 5 years, how do you see this partnership between humans and AI evolving, especially in light of these kinds of findings?
I think we're going to see a really interesting shift, a move away from AI primarily as an answer machine towards AI designed as true cognitive augmentation systems.
Hmm.
Tools that aren't just about giving you the output, but are deliberately designed to enhance your own thinking process along the way. So imagine things like reflective prompts becoming more common. The AI might ask you to explain why you chose a certain path or to justify a conclusion, forcing you to articulate and deepen your own understanding. Or tools with adjustable autonomy, where you, the user, can consciously dial the level of AI assistance up or down depending on the task, or whether you're trying to learn versus just execute. We'll definitely see tighter integration of human feedback loops, AI that learns not just from data, but from your specific corrections and guidance, becoming more like a personalized coach or collaborator. I also anticipate seeing more focus on measurements of cognitive engagement, maybe through sophisticated learning analytics, dashboards, and training software, potentially flagging when a user might be becoming overly reliant or passive. We'll see cultural shifts, I think. AI literacy will become a standard part of curricula, sure, but we might also see a resurgence of things like oral exams or project-based assessments that really test core understanding independent of AI assistance. Expect more innovation in AI tutoring and mentoring tools. Think AI sales coaches that don't just give scripts, but actively quiz you on product knowledge or objection handling. And definitely workplace evolution. New job roles emerging like AI collaboration specialist, more intentional team composition, blending different human skills with AI capabilities. Maybe even things like deliberate no AI creative sprints to foster pure, unassisted human ideation.
It sounds like the future really will be defined by finding that balance, that integration, balancing those immediate, tempting gains from AI with the crucial need for long-term human development and resilience. So let's leave our listeners with a provocative thought to mull over for their own organizations. In an era where pretty much every competitor has access to similar, powerful AI tools, what's truly going to set your organization apart won't be if you use AI. It'll be how well your people can harness those tools, how well they can add unique insights, spot and correct errors, push beyond the generic AI-generated baseline. The organizations that successfully cultivate human cognitive resilience alongside AI efficiency, those are the ones that will be the true leaders. The MIT study provides compelling evidence. AI can absolutely boost productivity, but it carries real cognitive costs if we're not mindful. The future belongs to those who learn to manage AI strategically, using it to amplify human intelligence, not inadvertently replace it. Thank you for joining the podcast, and see you soon.